On the night of April 22, 1941, families from Portland Square once again crowded into the public air raid shelter beneath the park. Above them, German incendiaries and bombs were already falling. Just after midnight, a bomb struck the eastern wing of the shelter, killing at least 71. The city diary recorded it in bold capital letters. Very large number of people killed. The Blitz in Britain is largely remembered through scenes of London which dominate memory and scholarship. Coventry appears. Other cities, despite devastating losses, remain on the edge of public memory. My research addresses this gap by focusing on Plymouth and one moment in particular, the bombing of the Portland Square air raid shelter. Local history provides an opportunity to interpret national events through personal stories. What changes when we move from numbers to names, from casualty statistics to individual stories? To bring history to the level of lived experience, I turn to one family, my own, the family of Major William John Lang Cornelius. Lang Cornelius was born in Plymouth in 1896. The oldest of four, he trained in communications as a telegraph apprentice before serving in the Middle East with the Royal Engineers during the First World War. In 1920, he returned to Plymouth to work for the General Post Office. In 1923, he married his neighborhood sweetheart, Marjorie Maggie Hill, at St. Matthias Church. They settled at 42 Portland Square and had two sons, John Anthony in 1928 and David Basil in 1934. Lang's career had been shaped by one war. His sons were growing up on the eve of another. Commissioned as a territorial army officer, Lang rose to the rank of major, organizing recruitment drives and planned war game exercises. Throughout the summer of 1939, as another war threatened on the horizon, underground air raid shelters were constructed throughout Plymouth. One of the largest complexes, Shelter 34, was built under the park at Portland Square to accommodate between 750 and 1,000 people. On September 3, 1939, Britain declared war on Germany, and the so-called phony war ensued. Everything changed in the spring of 1940. Within a span of 6 weeks, the strategic landscape of Europe upended. By the end of June, Britain stood alone. With Nazi forces in control of northern France, Plymouth was directly in the strike zone of the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe. Plymouth had its first air raid alert on June 30th. On July 6, it experienced its first raid and civilian casualties. Through late 1940 and into 1941, the raids intensified. The city's greatest trials came over 7 nights in March and April 1941. Each attack unfolded according to the Luftwaffe's two-part strategy. The first wave of planes dropped thousands of incendiary bombs to start fires and overwhelm emergency personnel. These fires also served as beacons, marking out the targets for the second wave of bombers to strike those same areas with heavy explosives. The same flight patterns were repeated on consecutive nights to obliterate the targets. The first attack of this spring campaign began on March 20th, just hours after the royal visit of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Overnight, Plymouth went from celebrating royal pageantry to facing chaos and destruction. The scale of destruction from those 2 nights was staggering. The city's commercial district was obliterated, Guildhall Square was gutted. The 1941 estimated cost of the damage was £100 million. For the Cornelius family, the March raids were the tipping point. Maggie Cornelius's mother, Emma Hill, decided to depart her home on Maple Grove for the safety of Restermel, her cottage in the Devon countryside. She had endured her own losses during the March Blitz. The successful business that she and her late husband built together on Prince's Rock was one of the commercial casualties of the March raid. The shop and its contents burned to the ground. Another bomb had detonated close to number 42 Portland Square in Portland Place East, blowing out doors and windows and damaging several homes. A teenage boy and friend of Emma's grandson, Anthony, lost his life in that explosion. In the final weeks of pregnancy, Maggie would remain at Portland Square as she was anticipating entering a nursing home to give birth. She sent her sons, Anthony and Basil, away with their grandmother to be out of the way. On April 22nd, Lang and Maggie found themselves alone at number 42 Portland Square for a dinner of pasties with only their cat to keep them company. The sun set at 8:22 p.m. By 8:30, theaters closed. The nightly blackout followed at 8:52. Some 40 minutes later, Plymouth's alert system switched to yellow at 9:34 p.m., signaling an imminent attack. 10 minutes later, air raid sirens blared. The first German bombers were already overhead. As the sirens warbled, the Corneliuses decided to make their way across the street to the communal air raid shelter. Lang gathered a few papers and valuables, while Maggie put on her gray tweed coat to face the chilly evening and the cold, damp conditions of the shelter. She affixed a silver brooch of St. Christopher to her lapel. The cat would need to look after itself, as animals were not permitted in the shelter. Lang assisted Maggie the short way across the road to the shelter's eastern entrance and down the stairs. Once inside the shelter, they turned to the left and found a place to sit on the wooden benches next to some of their neighbors. St. George's Day, April 23rd. Just after midnight, a Luftwaffe pilot released a heavy-caliber bomb. The trajectory sent it pummeling towards the center of the park at Portland Square and the packed air raid shelter beneath it. The bomb struck the eastern wing of the shelter, creating a crater some 30 by 40 feet wide. The bombardment continued for another 2 hours. Even before the Luftwaffe disappeared, teams of emergency personnel descended on the site to search for survivors. Only a handful were found. The work quickly turned to retrieving the dead. Frank Davey, a first responder, recalled entering the ruins of the shelter. "I shall never forget the sight which greeted us. Every one of them had been killed in exactly the position they were occupying when the bombs fell. It was like being at Madame Tussauds. Only these had been alive and well only minutes before. They had all been blackened by that blast, and when you touched them, they just fell over." Ambulance driver Doreen Jessup followed soon after. She said, "There were all the people just sitting, some with children still on their laps, people with glasses on, and the glass still intact. They were all dead, killed by the blast. Their hair looked like wigs, sort of lifeless and dusty." The dead were taken a short distance to the city's provisional wartime mortuary, a converted lumber yard on Holwell Street. The Corneliuses were delivered to the mortuary at 8 p.m. Kitty Hill, an aunt, later told Anthony Cornelius, "When Maggie was found, she was just covered with dust. Lang was badly knocked around." On the 24th of April, after a third consecutive night of bombing, the Reverend Roger Welchman of St. Matthias Church joined the queue of relatives and friends at the mortuary. He would meet with authorities and identify the Corneliuses. It was from Reverend Welchman that the Corneliuses' oldest son Anthony learned the news that would divide his childhood into before and after. With the continued threat of air raids and in light of the family tragedy, Anthony and his younger brother returned to their grandmother's cottage outside of the city. She became their guardian. Anthony eventually immigrated to Canada and then the United States. In his retirement, he was determined that the tragedy of the Portland Square air raid shelter be commemorated. He worked with the University of Plymouth, the Plymouth Herald, and other organizations to raise support for a memorial. The result of those efforts is the statue Hope. The work depicts an adult raising a child to the sky. The artist drew inspiration from an account about a young couple sending their child to the countryside during the Blitz. The Blitz is often measured in tonnage dropped, buildings destroyed, and casualties recorded, but it was lived in kitchens, shelters, churches, and at 42 Portland Square. 1,174 were killed in Plymouth. Numbers allow us to comprehend scale. Names force us to confront cost. When we say Major William Cornelius, we see a father who collected stamps and counted the parish collection each Sunday night. When we say Marjorie Cornelius, we see a pregnant mother wearing a St. Christopher brooch sitting in a shelter beneath a square. When we say Anthony, we see a child walking into a vicarage, wondering whether his cat had died, and hearing instead that his parents had gone home. When we move from numbers to names, we do not change the scale of the past, but we do change our relationship to it and understanding of it. This is why local history is so valuable, because here, in places like Plymouth, the numbers have names that give history its humanity.